Holy, how are you there? BEE, Black Economic Empowerment. What is it? What is it supposed to be? I just listened to a short by Mbuyiseni Dlovu from EFF. He speaks about knowing how Mark Zuckerberg got rich because of starting Facebook, became a millionaire, bought uh, uh, both WhatsApp and Instagram. It goes on to speak about other billionaires like Steve Jobs, who started Apple. And then he asks the people a question: how did Ramaphosa become a billionaire? What we all know is BEE, Black Economic Empowerment, a government sponsored scheme that was meant to give share ownership to the previously disadvantaged black people straight after the scourge of apartheid in South Africa. A very noble idea if you were to look at it on the surface, because it says that black people were denied one thing throughout apartheid and even until now, the uh, the opportunity to own things. All right. So people are divided into two types. There's people who are the owners, either investors or managing owners, and then there's the workers who just work for wages. So the black people during apartheid were not just the workers, but they were delegated the list of the opportunity, which is to be the low wage earner at the bottom of the rug. And white people and others who look more white were made supervisors, managers, and stuff like that. And then the white people were the owners. It so when apartheid ended, the new South Africa sought to redress that by saying, okay, black people, you have been denied access to capital. Remember, for you to be an owner, you don't need to be bright. You don't need an IQ. You just need access to capital. The bank can just give you 10 million rand. Okay, you can own a business. You don't have to do anything. You just have to satisfy the requirements of the bank. During apartheid, the requirement you just had to be white, and uh, the the reason for denial during apartheid was that you had to be black. So come ANC new government comes to redress that. Sounds like a noble idea, right? That these black people that have not been given opportunity, all of a sudden let us just give them opportunities, isn't it? Well, it is noble, but what BEE did, or what the ANC did using that noble idea, was to enrich only a few. That's how Cyril Ramaphosa and Patrice Motsepe got rich. Essentially, they applied that law only unto themselves. That is greatest level of greed. When Nelson Mandela went to 27 years in jail and all the comrades died, and the Condoleezza comrades died, and people suffered for almost a century, so that when the final answer comes to eradicate the black population from poverty, only the few black leaders who got to harvest the whole slice of the cake. BE is a good uh, policy because it's about empowering black people economically through access to capital. So how they got these shares is very simple. The bank gave them money to buy shares. So white people didn't lose anything. So if you're a white person, you're owning a mining firm, the bank would give Ramaphosa or any other black person money, and that black person pays the white guy. So the white guy goes happy, but the black guy, he's now a owner, which means he now begins to participate in the economy as an owner. It is very essential, because what we are looking for is when we talk about black emancipation, or emancipation of any people for that matter, is the ownership of the resources, ownership of economic resources, not just land. And Julius Malema likes to talk about land. Or land is just one of the factors of production. Okay, you need to have ownership of the productive uh, um, assets, whether you own land for farming, whether you own a shop for buying and selling, or whether you own a factory for production, or whether you own or you rent a space where you produce services, or you own property rights or intellectual property rights to be able to render a service and have an economic benefit from it. So that is what BEE was meant to address. But you see, because most of our politicians, they're usually short-sighted or narrow-minded. So when South Africa came into being, the new South Africa, their focus was mainly on the mining industry. Just like now, Julius Malema focuses on land. The same thing ZANU-PF also did focus on land. They didn't understand it's not just about land or the mining industry. It's about the whole economy and the whole well-being of the human being, including the human dignity of a previously undignified majority. So you need to think about that as well. So they just focus on the mines. So well, let's focus on the mines. They say, okay, let's have black people owning the mines. And then Ramaphosa, Patrice Motsepe, and a few other big guys in the ANC got access to money from banks and money from the government to buy those shares, which actually were bought at some discount of some sort. All right. I do not know how the shareholders got to be happy, but they perhaps I'm not really certain now. I think the government paid the rest of the premium. I mean, the rest of the share price. For example, if the share is 100 rand, you could just buy it for say 60 rand. Then the government pays for it, something like that. But the injustice that Ramaphosa and Patrice Motsepe did was that they did not extend that opportunity to as many black people as possible. Instead, it was only beneficial to a few. That's why their greed caused them to be billionaires. So they are billionaires because a lot of black people are suffering. It is the same thing that they are doing in Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF did it to the Zimbabweans, and Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC who support ZANU-PF are at it holding Zimbabweans at ransom. Hence the reason why ANC keeps on extending these ZTP permits in South Africa, because they need Zimbabweans away from Zimbabwe. If Zimbabweans all go back to Zimbabwe and fix their country, Cyril Ramaphosa and the guys in the ANC like Fikile Mbalula, who likes to support Edim Mnangagwa, they will lose their stronghold on the Zimbabwean mining industry. The Zimbabwean mines are owned by many ANC cadres. So ZANU-PF and ANC are stealing from Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe. It's not enough that the ANC is stealing from the black South Africans here, but they've also gone to steal from the black Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe. Hence, you have now in Zimbabwean politics SADC virtually meeting to discuss Zimbabwe. Nothing is going to come out of it because the regional superpower South Africa is busy having its fill of the Zimbabwean resources. And there's no way that South Africa, that's why you see Fikile Mbalula is very vocal, anti-Triple C, pro-ZANU-PF, because he knows they are benefiting big time. They are eating big time. You understand? So that is why you see their migrant policy is rather flimsy. Do they want Zimbabweans in South Africa or not? You see, they will come publicly and and and, and try to they're actually a confused bunch, because here's the ANC's interest in Zimbabwe. You really need to know what is ANC's interest in Zimbabwe. It's the interest of the comrades who are eating money. Our mining sector in Zimbabwe is owned not only by Zimbabwean ZANU-PF, not only by Zimbabwean elite, but South African elite as well. They are at it. So this South African elite depends on Zimbabweans' docility. We as Zimbabweans need to be weak and naive and be threatened by the possible loss of life from the Zimbabwean military. And as Edim Mnangagwa is running down the country, they are hoping that Zimbabweans leave Zimbabwe and come to South Africa to look for jobs, for low income earning jobs at the bottom of the rung with no opportunity for upward mobility whatsoever. And they do it purposefully so that as Zimbabweans are suffering in South Africa, they are leaving Zimbabwe open for ZANU-PF and ANC to pillage the country dry. Whilst the diabolic nature is that as they do that, they are putting pressure on the South African service delivery mechanisms, a service delivery that they themselves cannot do well, which causes social upheaval between the underclass in South Africa, the black working class South Africans, and the black working class predominantly from Zimbabwe, who are now forced by ZANU-PF and ANC to leave Zimbabwe and come work here in South Africa. Then you get things like Operation Tudula, xenophobia, and the ANC does not know exactly how to address xenophobic attacks. They will always come to be against xenophobic attacks, and because the ANC does need poor Zimbabweans in South Africa. Also, the other partners of ANC is the white monopoly capital in South Africa, which also is benefiting from Zimbabwe's cheap labor. Trust me, our Zimbabwean labor in South Africa are worth 10 times more than what they are paid in this country. But the white monopoly capital is happy to keep that very well-educated labor at very depressed prices, owing to the terrible political conditions back home in Zimbabwe. So you see these factors that keep the Zimbabweans trapped is your very own black government, which also is like the ANC, which instead of doing BEE in Zimbabwe they didn't call it BEE, they used to call it affirmative action in the 90s. It also enriched people like Philip Chiangwa and those that were close to Robert Mugabe. And they became billionaires, multimillionaires in Zimbabwe, whilst everybody else suffered, including the so-called land redistribution. The only reason why there's a lot of people in Zimbabwe that have got land is because the people themselves took it up to themselves to take the land. It wasn't Robert Mugabe's policy to give people land. Actually, it was the people themselves who went and took the land themselves. But nonetheless, most of the productive land has gone anyway to the political ruling class who are holding the whole country ransom, or helped by their counterparts down south, the ANC, which also, instead of using their advantage as a regional leader to bring Zimbabwe out of this poverty, they have used that, the Fikile Mbalulas and the Ramaphosas of this world. And the Thabo Mbekis, it all goes the way from Thabo Mbeki with his quiet diplomacy. Quiet diplomacy just made the comrades just keep on eating, eating, and eating. So they use that leverage to gain access to the Zimbabwean resources. So ZANU-PF allowed the ANC comrades also access to be eating or gaining from the resources of Zimbabwe, so that the ANC will look away as ZANU-PF together with the ANC comrades are pillaging the resources of Zimbabwe. And of course, the other partners, the white monopoly capital in South Africa, does not mind that too, because they also get to benefit from cheap labor, and they also are part of the mining industry as well in Zimbabwe. It is a well-known fact that some of the gold production that is counted to the GDP of South Africa is actually Zimbabwean gold that is smuggled through these porous borders. And we do know that Zimbabwean coal is coming cheaply to South African ESCOM. We know that the what is it, the this new mineral that we have now, lithium, is not is processed in South Africa. It's not even accounted for in Zimbabwe. No taxes are paid for in Zimbabwe. They come and enrich South African companies. So if you're looking at the economy of South Africa and the country of South Africa, you will see that we have got a South African government and a South African business, South African entities that are happy with a non-performing Zimbabwe. They need Zimbabwe to be at pariah, because it's like South Africa and Zimbabwe is like a lion that is eating its prey. It is eating its impala. So when the lion has got its its mouth on the neck of the impala. Zimbabwe is the impala that is being eaten by the lion, which is South Africa. Don't expect that the lion wants the prey to go free. So you will see, you must pray hard as Zimbabweans, because we're talking about a SADC meeting happening tomorrow. ZANU PF hopes that they will get support from ANC, and of course they will get support from ANC, because ANC and ZANU PF are the lion. ANC, ZANU PF, white South African monopoly capital, they are the lions that are eating the small little baby, which is the people of Zimbabwe. Well. We as the Zimbabweans now, we need to pray and ask the Lord to intervene. And I like the way that Jesus speaks to me. He says, son, I'm not telling you what it is. It's called the intervention of the Lord. You do not know what that means. It means that there is an intervention that is coming, and it needs you people who are Zimbabweans to keep on praying. Keep the country in your prayers, and as the Lord is working out a salvation, forget about SADC. SADC is just ZANU PF and South African hooligans and the other regional leaders as well. So let me tell you what they do when they have these special conferences in Zimbabwe. The real reason why they have these conferences is so that they can use the election rigging of ZANU PF as a bargaining tool for gaining access to the Zimbabwean resources. So the ANC can go there and scream at ZANU PF so that ZANU PF can give them more access to Zimbabwean resources. Also, the Mozambicans and the other guys in the SADC region, they will scream at ZANU PF. They won't just let them go freely. No, they will scream at them and make it hard for Emerson Mnangagwa's life. So the only way that Emerson can be set free is to give them more access, to give in to their requests as to what do they want in Zimbabwe, what are their interests in Zimbabwe. So you see, this meeting, it's got nothing to do with Zimbabweans. It has got to do with the regional leaders who are very clever. They will use the situation of the Zimbabweans for their own personal benefit. At the end of the day, the meeting is going to be resolved when ZANU PF has allowed the SADC lions, okay, like these hyenas, these SADC hyenas who also want a piece of the pie in Zimbabwe. So the only way that ZANU PF survive is actually giving them piece of the meat. So Itim Nangagwa is gonna give 3 gold mines to the president of Mozambique, 4 gold mines to the president of Namibia and his delegates, and then he gives 10 ones to Fikile Mbalula and his other ANC cadres, and then they will all sit down and keep quiet. Then they will come up with some English words, some confusing big English words from the dictionary that means Emerson Mnangagwa will keep on ruling. Okay, whatever excuse that they come up with, it's just gonna be like that. Okay, I do not know about the position of Zambia, whether Zambia also's attack on ZANU PF is an attempt to extract economic resources from ZANU PF, or it is really a genuine attempt to see Zimbabwe free. But judging by Hichilema's a record in Zambia, we can see that he is a man of principles. I cannot say the same about Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC, because judging by the record of ANC and Cyril Ramaphosa and Thabo Mbeki, they are unprincipled African leaders who use the political position for personal gain at the expense of the suffering masses. However, Hichilema is different. We cannot put him in that light. So seeing that the Berkeley is coming from Zambia, perhaps there might be hope coming from there. Perhaps in those negotiating rooms, they might actually try to negotiate a better deal for the Zimbabweans. But I cannot just hope on that. Let me just come back home and let's talk about Triple C, our leader, Nelson Chamisa himself. He is another big problem because he also is being followed by the Zimbabweans, and he uses that frustration of the Zimbabweans as a bargaining tool also to extract resources from the Zimbabwean elite. So the ruling elite in Harare have got no choice but to throw some bones to Nelson Chamisa so that he will be lackadaisical in his approach to the emancipation of the Zimbabweans. If I've been saying before that if from a well, if a rabbit doesn't come out of the hole for 10 years, it means there's no rabbit in there. Nelson Chamisa has been pretending to be leading a revolution for so many years, and nothing has been coming out of there. It means that he has got no intention of leading a revolution. Chamisa has got an intention of of capitalizing on the pain of the Zimbabweans, bringing Zimbabweans under Triple C so that he can use that as a bargaining tool for all his own personal enrichment. By the way, the reason why you have got an opposition political party is so that you, as a political opposition leaders, can go to the elite and bargain for the collective, not bargain for personal gain. So Chamisa has already bargained for personal gain because he is rich. He is known to be a very well-resourced guy in Harare, extremely rich. So he has got no feeling whatsoever about the emancipation of Zimbabwe because he's already emancipated. So should he lead into a fresh Zimbabwe when Nelson Chamisa is the president, do you not think that the pattern will carry on like that? The very same Ramaphosa that we had in South Africa who became billionaires, we will have the same thing with Chamisa and the unknown faces that are surrounding him. You see, one of the big problems that I have with Nelson Chamisa is that he has got no structures, and that is got nothing to do with ZANU-PF manipulating Triple C, because ZANU-PF has already manipulated Triple C by the records, even though they do not have structures. So the issue of being structureless actually to me appears to be a systematic attempt by these faceless people who are surrounding Nelson Chamisa, who do not know who they are. They've got a nefarious agenda of harming Zimbabwe post ZANU-PF, because ZANU-PF will go, but the next question after ZANU-PF is gone is what replaces ZANU-PF. If you have Nelson Chamisa and these faceless people, these dark faces that we do not even know, when he is in power and is a leader, and these hyenas also come, they will do exactly what Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC cadres did to the South Africans. So you as Zimbabweans need to be very careful how you place your vote, how you place your followership. If you keep on following clouds without rains, you will find out after ZANU-PF is gone that yes, we hated ZANU-PF, but what we have now is worse, because these men are answerable to anyone, known by nobody. Samisa is leading a revolution that is faceless, which we do not know who the leaders are except for him. It's either he is leading us into a tyrannical government or a government of the elite, which is just going to produce oligarchs, from ZANU-PF oligarchs to Triple C oligarchs, and you don't even know who those people are. So it's high time for people in Zimbabwe to be very wary of what they're dealing with and begin to pray to God to give them better answers and a better attitude and a better posture for true emancipation of the majority of the people. Countries have done that. We have got countries like Switzerland who are divided into cantons, which is these are very small little districts that are very much empowered politically and economically. We also have countries, the Nordic countries like Sweden and Norway, who which have done extremely well in their ability to redistribute the national resources to the masses. We do have also countries even in the Middle East like the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, that also are led by good leaders. You see, the thing about the Middle East is that the GCC has got was lucky that they have got good principled leaders that did not become selfish but did think about the rest of the society. However, in Africa, we are unlucky that we usually get these leaders that are extremely selfish, self-centered, have no concept of community, have no concept of country, concept of my people or our people. Therefore, they become the perpetrators of violence against their own people, because they actually have got no capacity whatsoever to reason well. How they got there into power is another story altogether, whether they were they were helped by the enemies of the people, because the most rational reason is because they were helped by the enemies of the people, who made sure that the ones that lead black people are leaders who hate their own people. And our people have not developed enough consciousness, what we call black consciousness. It has not been developed enough to recognize that our leaders are not our leaders. They are given unto us by those who hate us, so that the fools who are called our leaders will perpetuate our suffering. So for us as the black masses, we need to actually begin to have this black consciousness. This revolution, it shouldn't be happening in the streets, but the revolution must first be happening in the minds. It's the renewal of the mind that Paul speaks about. Says, brethren, be renewed in your mind. So it is a renewal of the mind of the black man that needs to happen community-wise. As a community, we need to be conscious of what is at stake, and not just be taking things at face value. So I'm going to conclude now and say BEE, Black Economic Empowerment, such a noble idea, but in the hands of ravenous fools who have destroyed the social fabric of black people. It is a noble idea. We need the right people in those positions, and those right people are going to arise from within the territories of the people, from within the economic territories of the suffering masses. Do not let an elite man like Nelson Chamisa to lead you, because he has got no interest of the suffering masses. His interest is just to join the elite. It is us who should find ourselves in the same predicament, who can actually group together and build a real revolution, which happens in the mind. As I said, it is a renewal of the mind. It is a knowledge base that we need to increase our capacity to learn and be filled with ideologies that will truly carry the whole community forward. It is a hard work, it is a long shot, it is entering by the narrow gate, but it is actually that which will bring life, rather than the short and easy way of leaving the struggle of all the Zimbabweans to one man, Nelson Chamisa. What do you expect him to do? He has done the obvious. Take your struggle and use it as a economic advantage, so that he can negotiate himself into the ruling elite in Zimbabwe. So that is what we have, folks. My name is Ngobani Zondo, and I am the voice shouting in the wilderness and saying, be wise. This is the sense to take us forward. Have a great day.